Welcome back. Okay, so we're heading up to the border now, north border of France and Switzerland, approaching top of descent. So we should probably start our descent preparations and checklists and all that good stuff. So we'll use the magic super checklist feature once again. Oops, which I just turned off. Okay, so descent checklist. Nav rad page set. Want to set the minimums up. What else we got to do here? VRF speeds and auto brake. Okay, we can do all of that fairly easily. First, we know the minimums I've already checked in Zurich are 200 feet radio altimeter. So we're going to switch the minimums switch up here. It's kind of an odd one. I think I got it there onto radio. We're going to set in 200 feet as a minimum, like so. Auto brake level is going to be level 4 on this flight. We'll jump it back over here. Again, the camera's grabbing me before I can get stuff done. 3, 4, like so. Okay, so let's go on down to the FMC. Let's see what we've got here. So here's our route. Performance in it. That's not the page we want. That's the page we want. Okay, now I had a problem with this earlier, and it seems like it's doing it again. It won't give me the descent page until I actually start descending, which is kind of strange. I'm not sure why it does that. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I've already got it right here. So we're landing 30-degree flaps. It's actually on a nit ref. My mistake. 30-degree flaps is 144 knots. That's our speed. So that is all set. We now have that. Seatbelt signs are all on. We might as well warn the passengers that they should probably sit down at this point. PA system, what do we got here? Cruise flight. Emergency descent, entertainment, seatbelts on. None of that works. Before descent, here we are.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we start our descent, please make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright position. Make sure your seat belt is securely fastened, and all carry-on luggage is stowed underneath the seat in front of you, or in the overhead bins. Please turn off all electronic devices until we are safely parked at the gate. We hope that you found our flight enjoyable. We would like to remind you that cushions and blankets are to be left in your seats. Thank you.
Now our minimum altitude that we can descend to, or that we can set into the CDU up here, is 5,000 feet. There are altitude constraints obviously flying into Zurich on account of the very large mountains. So 5,000 feet is the minimum that we will put in here. It is a stepped descent. Now when I flew this previously, I did have to manage the descent manually a little bit, and we'll see how it goes today. It very much depends on the weather. I had a tailwind at that point. We got a headwind at this point, so we might be okay. So we're all set there. We can go look at the rad nav page as well, just to confirm that, or nav rad. Okay, so we're all set. ILS is already selected, ready to go. We're all good. There's nothing else to do. It's a pretty simple aircraft to manage descent. Unlike the 737NG, it's not that slippery in descent either. The speed doesn't tend to get away from you too much. So it should be uneventful. Now I would like to do a descent now. I have to admit to being a little bit rusty on this part. Let me see if I can find descent now. Nowhere there. It's on progress. Or not. Okay, I can't find that. Typically, an autopilot will descend you at 2,000 or more feet per minute. That could be quite jarring on the passengers. So one approach is either to manually dial in a rate of descent over here, which I could do, and ease into that 2,000 feet per minute descent. Or most Boeings have a descent now button, which you can activate, which will start you descending to the altitude here at 1,000 feet per minute until it intercepts the descent path from top of descent, at which point it will increase to 2,000 or more feet per minute. I'm not finding it. I apologize for that. Departures and arrivals. No, I think we've not got it. Okay. What is other? No, nothing there. So I'm obviously missing something. We won't do that. We'll just let it descend on its own. Let me just check on my route here and make sure we have no... Good, we have no holes set up. Actually, it's trying to set up a hold because I pressed the hold button. Oh, here it is. It's on the VNAV page. Of course it is. There. So we're a little bit of a way out from top of descent. Let me dial this down and we can see how far. So about 15 miles out from top of descent. That's a good number actually right now. So we're going to do descent now. Click on that. And away we go. Now this feels a little strange to me. In the 737 you click descent now and then you have to execute it so you don't accidentally start descending. So I think that's a little bit of an issue maybe with the FMC here. I would need to look that up. But we're in descent. Throttles are retarded. We have an FMC message. Obviously SATCOM is not available. Okay, we don't care. Let's get rid of that. That clears the FMC message. Now instead of a whole bank of warning lights, we have warning lights in the cockpit obviously. But you tend to get ICAS messages up here, so you can see the state of the aircraft and also any conditions that you need to be aware of, so warnings, errors and so on will appear here, and then you can accept or reject them using these three buttons here, which is kind of neat as well. It's a very, very clean cockpit because of all these glass displays. There's the Swiss Alps up ahead. We are now well and truly in our descent. There's not much more to do until we get down a lot closer to the airport, which is still a little way out, so I might cut this in a second. But while we're descending, it's worth still talking about the other features of this package. I mentioned earlier on that it comes with a full set of documentation, over 1,000 pages, and that it's kind of an edited set of Boeing documentation. If you're familiar with Boeing manuals from other aircraft, simulated or real, you'll be extremely familiar with the manuals that you get with this. They have the same font, the same formatting, the same style. Everything is exactly as you would expect from a Boeing manual. They are, to all intents and purposes, Boeing manuals. It's just certain information that is not pertinent to simulation has been removed. Like, you don't really need to know the quickest route out of the cockpit in the event of emergency. The quickest route out is to go to File and click Exit. So they removed all things like that. They removed descriptions of how the cabin door locks, obviously, for security reasons. Things like that. So information you don't need has been removed. What is left is core Boeing information describing every facet of how to manage this aircraft. It is very, very, very detailed. This is a true study aircraft. Where there are still some differences or nuances, it's annotated in there as well. There's some little red text in a box that typically says, okay, this is different. For example, on the FMC, let's bring this up again, for entering a fix, there is no method of entering a fix which intersects two routes, what do they call them, air corridors, jetways, whatever you want to name them. There's no way of entering a fix which is an intersect, which you do have in the real FMC on the real aircraft. Not a big deal. I don't know anybody that really has done that in a simulated environment or needs to on a regular basis. I certainly can't even see VATSIM online, air traffic control, giving you an intersect of two airways, so not a huge deal. What is left though is extremely accurate, extremely realistic. Now I also mentioned this is a big deal aircraft because it is a 777. Everybody is very excited about that. It is licensed by Boeing. It's also a big deal because it's in X-Plane. And again, I don't want to get into the whole FSX versus X-Plane thing. I love FSX to bits and spend most of my time with it, but from a technical perspective at least, X-Plane is a more modern platform. It's a full 64-bit platform, which means it supports as much memory as you've got, as many processor cores as you've got, and as much power as you have in your graphics card as well, whereas FSX is constrained to technology that is 5 or more years old. So in that respect, you have a lot more scope as a developer of aircraft if you're developing for X-Plane than you currently do in FSX, and developing a highly complex aircraft like a 777 in X-Plane I think gives the 777 something of an edge in X-Plane, even though PNDG are about to come out with their own one. I think this is a sizable piece of competition for them, and I'm a big fan of them. I think PC Pilot as a whole is a big fan of PMDG. They make phenomenal aircraft. It's just very, very good to see competition of this caliber and on a different platform. I really think that's great. And I have a feeling that if more aircraft of this caliber come out for X-Plane, we might see more large-scale adoption of X-Plane, which would be phenomenal. I think one of the things holding back X-Plane's adoption is lack of support, lack of aircraft, lack of scenery. If you have hundreds or even thousands of dollars invested in FSX add-ons like scenery and aircraft, it's quite difficult to find the motivation to switch to a different platform where all that investment no longer works. So that's kind of the chicken and egg situation for X-Plane, is that while it might technically be better than FSX, it's certainly more modern than FSX, people will always be hesitant to switch because of the investment they already have in FSX. So hopefully we start to see a few more aircraft of this caliber and this complexity come out for X-Plane, and maybe that will drive some adoption. Time will tell. Anyway, let's dial this up and see where we're at. Okay, this is the 80-mile map. Gipple is really the transition from the star, so this is our star right here at BLM. It's a very simple star, as you can see. At the end of the star we have to transition onto the runway, so it's a left turn, and then we're going to sweep round onto runway 34. Fingers crossed everything goes really well, but we're actually very close, only 80 miles away now until actually Zurich itself just appeared on the screen there. Let me zoom down. Here comes Zurich right at the top, or it's about to pop on the top, so not very far to go. 26,000 feet, descending to 5,000. Looking at the waypoints and the flight plan here, we have at or above flight level 120 at this waypoint. We are going to meet that, obviously. We're at 26,000. At or above 6,000 at KLO. Now I might change this. I would rather be at 6,000 at KLO because it helps manage the rest of the descent, which is a 6,000 constraint here, a 5,000 constraint here. At or above 6,000 here could leave us at, say, 14,000, 15,000 feet and having to descend very, very rapidly. So I've not actually done this, but we will see how the FMC likes this. So we're going to say at 6,000. Now on a 737 again, which is the Boeing I am most familiar with, you would normally need to execute that. That's not the case here, it's just taken it. I'm going to click execute anyway just because it feels better. It's reassuring. Okay, so flight level, whatever we manage to reach at this point, I would like to be a lot lower. See, we have a constraint coming up. I'm not even sure. Well, I guess 30 miles. 30 miles out to BLM, we need to be flight level 200 or below, and then descending. We have Gipple here. It is indicating flight level 166. And then the next waypoint, KLO, up here at 6,000. That's a pretty steep descent. Pretty steep indeed, and managing the speed there could be a huge challenge. So let us see. I don't think we're going to do our current flight level 2120 in that distance. It's just not going to happen. So I think we just have to put up with it. We're going to have to hang the spoilers out a little bit, add some drag to this aircraft to get it down onto the descent profile that we needed to be on. Okay, welcome back. We're at our transition altitude. All the lights are on. QNH has been set at 1006. The weather did turn a little bit worse, and I decided we would change things up a little bit. I'm actually going to fly this manually all the way in, which should be a giggle. So let's disconnect the autopilot and the auto throttle and the flight director. Just double click disconnect, and that will handle that. Now the aircraft is already trimmed. All we need to do now is just keep it there. So 6,000 feet. It's going to turn around. Our actual approach that we selected is to pretty much overfly Zurich. Then we run out, turn around, and come back for runway 34, which is an ILS approach. You can see there's the snow and sleet coming down. Oops, mouse is locked. There we go. I'm losing my altitude a little bit, so let's just adjust that. We'll start configuring. So first stage of flaps, and then we can bring the throttles back on. This really is very, very nice to fly. Surprisingly nice to fly, in fact. So there's Zurich dead ahead. Runway 34 is actually this one, right here. Just trim this aircraft a bit. We are a little bit high, so it's okay that we are descending. My speed is a little high as well. I'm going to bring that down. Now while we're here, I will bring up the NavRad page and we will select the ILS. Whoops, there we go. That would tune the ILS according to our flight plan. There we go, we're on the correct altitude now, so we can level up a little bit. Now of course I could fly the whole approach with the autopilot, which is something I would normally do on my videos. The YouTube viewers watching this know that I would normally fly autopilot approach and maybe disconnect it in the final 1,000 feet or so. I just thought it would be a bit of an adventure to not do that. Okay, I think we're on, no, we're not a minimum range here, so let's pull that down. Already picked up the glide slope because we're overflying Zurich right now. Want to hold 6,000 feet until we are on this course here into the runway because of the hills that are coming up. Okay, so let's start our turn. Nice little 30-degree turn. Little backstick just to stop us dropping. I should have turned a little sooner, but this is fine. A little bit too much backstick. Now if you overcook it, if you do put in too much bank angle or do something which would otherwise upset passengers in the real life, this aircraft will actually play a sound of people in the back groaning and yelling. I'm climbing way too high right now. Not a very good turn. We've got a nice crosswind right now. What's my altitude? Altitude is very, very high, so let's drop the throttles a little bit. So we've already put first stage of flaps out. As that speed comes down, we will bring out the second stage, so 5 flaps as opposed to 1. You can already see there mountains looming up ahead. Which is why we have to be at 6,000 or above. Very, very low cloud. I think some more rain is likely. We'll leave the anti-ices as they are. Nice gentle descent now to our altitude that we want of 6,000. Ridiculously scenic part of the world. So we're going to level out at 6,000 right on that waypoint. That's what the green banana there tells you. Which is precisely where we want to be. In fact, we could stand to be leveled out at 6,000 a little bit sooner, but that's fine. When we come out here, we're going to be too low on the glide slope anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. The key is not to hit those big pointy things in front of us. See, glide slope's already alive again. Okay, so let's start our gentle right turn and use the turn indicator on the navigation display. Now we need to actually turn inside that magenta turn line, because that magenta turn line ends in a very steep right hand turn onto the ILS. So we're going to tighten this up a little bit, about 30 degrees. Watching the speed, so putting in some throttle right now, releasing some pressure on the stick there, just to try to hold us at 6,000. There we go, it's 25 degrees ish. Coming around to 30 degrees now, turns tightening up. Watching the altitude. Can't really go more than 30 degrees because of the guys in the back. Whoops, a little bit too much back pressure on the stick. Start easing up on this turn now. ILS is alive, so let's pull this down on the left. There we go. Localizer is alive, I should say. There is the runway dead ahead. So let's start losing some of the speed now. Runway is off to our left. Whoops. Watch the altitude. A little bit of trim. Nose down trim. Try to bring us back down. We are still under the glide slope, so not a problem. Flaps 5. Okay, this turns we're heading at 334 now, and that should hold us on course, intercepting the glide slope. It's a little less throttle now. Get our descent going. Here it comes. Coming up on flaps 10 extension now. A little bit high. Big flaps, raising the nose of the aircraft as you would expect, quite a lot. To the point that we very much lost the glide slope there, so we need to drop a lot of altitude now. Or increase our rate of descent, I should say. Let's go gear down. Looking for a flaps 30 landing. On the speed brake. Still very high. And we have a crosswind from the right, 6 knots. Need to be aware of that. It's causing some bumpiness as well. There we go, back on the glide slope. So ease up on this rate of descent. Don't overdo it. We don't want to end up too high once again. We still want to intercept the glide slope. Some localizer deviation there. There we are. So now we can ease up on that rate of descent. Speed will start dropping considerably. We can go to the next stage of flaps. Being aware that doing that, those are big flaps on big wings, will cause the nose to come up. Looking at the speed now, I want to be about 145 on the speed, so I'm getting a little bit back on the throttles here. Because we are under the glide slope a little bit now, so throttle on. A little bit of localizer deviation there, not a big deal. Nothing to panic about. Intercepting the glide slope, so back off the throttles. Let's go final stage of flaps now. Final for us. It's going to be flap 25 by the looks of it, not flap 30. So obviously not the final stage. Let's put final stage down now. Flaps 30. A little bit too high, easing off the throttles now. Improve our rate of descent. Here comes the rain. Now would be a good time to turn the wipers on, but I'm not going to. I'm a little bit busy. Some localizer deviation there. Definitely some glide slope deviation. There we go. Just want to turn left, get us back on course. Throttles on. Try to hold the glide slope. Try to hold the picture out of the window. Don't overcompensate. With that wind, it is making life a little bit tricky. Not a great deal. That's not a strong wind. $500.
300.
Oops. Under the right foot.
Terrain. Wide slope. 200. 100. 50. 30. 10. 10.
And we're down. Speed brake up. Reverse is green. We hear the crowd in the back start applauding. And we are down. Welcome to Zurich. That brings us to the end of our kind of first impressions overview of the Ramzzess and Phillip Worldliner 777 Professional for X-Plane. I gotta stress again, I really believe more aircraft like this will lead to X-Plane's wider adoption. It really is a beautiful aircraft. It's beautifully modeled. It flies like a dream. It's got a great amount of depth, the kind of depth that you would normally expect, say, from a PMDG on FSX. I think it's great. If you have X-Plane, this is a plane that you probably want to get. If you don't have X-Plane, this could be a reason to go get it. So before I sign off here, let's fire up the replay rather than taxi off and show you what that landing looked like from the outside, and you could admire the beautiful modeling on this aircraft. Once again, my name is Froogle. Thank you for watching.